The door flew open with such force that the family photos on the hallway wall rattled. Mark Daniels froze, his 5-year-old daughter's tiny hand still clasped in his, both of them wide-eyed as they stared at the woman standing in their doorway. Her business suit was impeccable, her expression thunderous. "You're fired, Mark," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet Sunday afternoon. Absolutely, completely fired. What happened next would change everything, but not in the way either of them expected.
Hey everyone!
If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that will take you on unexpected journeys. Your support means everything, and I promise this tale of misunderstanding, second chances, and finding love in the most unexpected places will be worth every minute. Now, let's dive back into Mark and Victoria's story. Mark Daniels had been drowning for exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. That was how long ago cancer had taken his wife, leaving him alone with their daughter Lily, and a job he could barely manage to keep. The marketing firm where he worked had been understanding at first. Flowers at the funeral, casseroles dropped off by coworkers, and a flexible schedule for those first few devastating months. But corporate sympathy, like all things, had an expiration date. Victoria Chen had taken over as department head 6 months ago, and from day one, Mark had been on thin ice. He'd missed deadlines, forgotten meetings, and once fell asleep during a client presentation after staying up all night with Lily's fever. Each time, Victoria had called him into her office, her dark eyes unreadable behind stylish glasses, her voice measured as she documented his failures. "This is your 3rd warning this quarter, Mark," she'd said just last Friday, sliding a formal reprimand across her desk. "I need to see improvement immediately." He'd nodded, promised to do better, and promptly forgotten about the client meeting scheduled for Saturday morning, because Lily's ballet recital was the same day. The choice hadn't even felt like a choice. He'd simply gone to watch his daughter dance as a tiny snowflake, clapping until his hands hurt, while his phone, silenced and forgotten in his jacket pocket, vibrated with Victoria's increasingly urgent messages. Now here she was, standing in his doorway on a Sunday, her normally perfect hair slightly disheveled, as if she'd been running her hands through it in frustration. "Ms. Chen," Lily asked, peering around her father's leg, "are you here for cookies?"
Daddy and I made chocolate chip!
Victoria's gaze dropped to the child, and something in her expression shifted. For a moment, she looked almost lost. "No, sweetheart, She stopped, seeming to realize the inappropriateness of screaming at a man in front of his young daughter. "I'm here to talk to your daddy about work." Mark knelt down beside Lily. "Honey, why don't you go finish your drawing in the kitchen? I need to speak with Miss Chen for a few minutes." After Lily skipped away, Mark straightened, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "Look, I know I missed the meeting yesterday. I was going to call you first thing tomorrow to apologize." "Apologize?" Victoria stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind her. Mark, the Westfield account was worth millions. They waited for an hour before walking out. An hour! The apartment was small, and Mark was suddenly acutely aware of the breakfast dishes still in the sink, the basket of unfolded laundry on the couch, the princess toys scattered across the floor. His life was a mess, and now his boss was standing in the middle of it, witnessing just how completely he was failing at everything. "I know," he said quietly. "Lily had her first ballet recital. I should have remembered both, should have arranged something, but I just forgot." Victoria opened her mouth, likely to deliver the termination speech she'd rehearsed on the drive over, but her eyes caught on something behind him. A wall of photographs, Mark's wife in a hospital bed, holding newborn Lily, the 3 of them at the beach, at Christmas, at a pumpkin patch. And then just Mark and Lily, their smiles a little more forced, the light in their eyes dimmer. "When did she die?" Victoria asked, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. It was fast." The words still felt like stones in his throat. Victoria's shoulders dropped slightly. She glanced toward the kitchen, where they could hear Lily humming to herself, then back at Mark. For the first time, she seemed to really see him, the dark circles under his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands, the way his clothes hung a bit too loosely on his frame. "You haven't been sleeping," she observed. Mark laughed, a hollow sound. "Not really, no. Lily has nightmares. And then there's laundry, and lunches to pack, and forms to fill out for school. By the time I get to work, I'm already running on fumes." Victoria moved to the couch, carefully shifting the laundry basket to sit down. After a moment's hesitation, Mark joined her, maintaining a professional distance. "Why didn't you say anything?" she asked. "The company has resources, grief counseling, family support services. We could have adjusted your workload." "I didn't want special treatment," Mark admitted. "And honestly, I was afraid. Single dad barely keeping it together. I thought if anyone knew how close to the edge I was, I'd lose my job for sure. We need the health insurance. Lily has asthma." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then she did something completely unexpected. She took off her glasses, set them on the coffee table, and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "I lost my father when I was 7, she said. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I remember how tired she always looked, how she'd fall asleep helping me with homework." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "I should have recognized the signs." "You couldn't have known," Mark said, surprised by this glimpse of humanity from his always composed boss. "Maybe not, but I should have asked instead of just documenting your failures." She sighed. "The thing is, Mark, you're actually brilliant when you're focused. That campaign you designed for the Children's Hospital last year, it was inspired. That's why I've been so frustrated. I know what you're capable of." Mark blinked, genuinely surprised. "You liked that campaign. You never said anything." "I'm not particularly good at positive feedback," Victoria admitted with a wry smile. "Another thing my team has pointed out in my performance reviews." A small silence fell between them, less tense than before. "So, am I really fired?" Mark finally asked. Victoria looked toward the kitchen again, where Lily was now singing a song from Frozen, at the top of her lungs. "No," she said after a moment, "but we need to make some changes. Real ones, not just promises to do better." Over the next hour, as Lily colored at the kitchen table, Mark and Victoria hammered out a new arrangement. He would work from home 2 days a week. His client load would be adjusted. He would take advantage of the company's family support services. And in return, he would commit fully to the projects he was assigned, bringing the creativity and insight that Victoria insisted he was capable of. "I'm still your boss," Victoria said firmly as she prepared to leave. "I'll still expect excellence, but excellence doesn't have to mean burnout." As she reached the door, Lily came running from the kitchen, holding a drawing. "Miss Chen, I made this for you." She thrust the paper into Victoria's hands, a crayon rendering of 3 stick figures, a tall one with long black hair, a medium one with brown hair, and a small one with yellow pigtails. "That's you and Daddy and me," Lily explained proudly. "Daddy says you're the boss, which means you help take care of us, right?" Victoria looked startled, then touched. She knelt down to Lily's level. "That's a very special way of thinking about it. Thank you, Lily." As Victoria drove home that evening, the child's drawing carefully placed in her portfolio, she found herself thinking about Mark Daniels in a way that was decidedly unprofessional. There had been something about seeing him in his home, vulnerable and loving with his daughter, that had shifted her perception. She'd come to fire an incompetent employee, and instead found a man doing his best under impossible circumstances. She would need to be careful. Office romances were messy, and the power dynamic made it even more complicated. But for the first time in years, Victoria felt a spark of interest that went beyond spreadsheets and marketing strategies. Over the next few months, the new arrangement proved successful beyond either of their expectations. Working from home allowed Mark to be more present for Lily while actually increasing his productivity. The family support services connected him with a reliable after-school program and occasional evening childcare. And Victoria found reasons to schedule one-on-one meetings that somehow always ran long, drifting from professional discussions to personal conversations. They discovered shared interests, both loved old black and white films, had a weakness for spicy food, and harbored secret dreams of writing a novel someday. Victoria began to drop by Mark's desk with coffee, just the way he liked it. Mark found himself putting extra effort into projects he knew would cross her desk. The office noticed. Of course they did. Whispers and knowing glances followed them in the hallways. Mark worried about his job, about Lily, about disrupting the fragile balance they'd finally achieved. Victoria worried about her reputation, about accusations of favoritism, about opening herself up to potential heartbreak. But something was happening between them, something neither could deny. 6 months after Victoria had shown up at his door to fire him, she appeared there again, this time with a bottle of wine and a nervous smile. "Lily's at a sleepover," Mark said, surprised to see her. "I know. You mentioned it yesterday." Victoria shifted uncomfortably. "I thought maybe we could talk, without interruptions." That night, over pasta Mark cooked and wine Victoria brought, they finally acknowledged what had been growing between them. Victoria confessed that she'd never imagined herself with a ready-made family, but Lily had somehow worked her way into her heart. Mark admitted that he'd been terrified of loving someone again, of risking another loss. "I'm still your boss," Victoria reminded him, echoing her words from months before. "Is that a problem?" Mark asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. "It could be," she said honestly, "but I think it's a problem worth solving." They moved slowly, carefully. Victoria transferred to a different department to eliminate the direct reporting relationship. They waited 3 months before introducing Victoria to Lily as someone special, rather than just Daddy's boss. They navigated the complex emotions that came with building a new family in the shadow of loss. It wasn't easy. Lily sometimes cried for her mother, confused by Victoria's growing presence in their lives. Mark occasionally pulled away, overwhelmed by guilt when he found himself happy. Victoria struggled to find her place, neither trying to replace Lily's mother nor remaining a distant figure. But they persevered, learning and adjusting as they went. Victoria's organizational skills brought structure to their chaotic household. Mark's warmth and creativity softened Victoria's tendency toward perfectionism, and Lily blossomed with the love of 2 adults fully committed to her well-being. 1 year to the day after Victoria had appeared at their door to fire Mark, she knocked again, this time with a small velvet box in her pocket and a question in her heart. Mark opened the door, smiling at the sight of her. "You know, you have a key now. You don't have to knock." Victoria took a deep breath. "I wanted to do this properly. The first time I came to this door, I was angry and ready to fire you. Today, I'm here to ask if you and Lily would consider making our family official." Behind Mark, Lily came running, launching herself into Victoria's arms with practiced ease. "Did you bring ice cream?"
You said we could have ice cream.
Victoria laughed, catching the little girl and spinning her around. "Even better. I brought a question for you and your dad." That evening, as the 3 of them sat on the couch looking at the simple engagement ring Victoria had chosen, Lily asked the question that had been on her mind. If you marry Daddy, what do I call you? You won't be Ms. Chen anymore. Victoria looked at Mark, who nodded encouragingly. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Victoria said carefully. Victoria is fine, or Vicky if you want. Some kids in blended families use special names like bonus mom or just a nickname. Lily considered this seriously, her small brow furrowed in concentration. I think, she said finally, I'll call you Mom Victoria. Because I have my first mom in heaven, but you're my mom here on earth. Is that okay? Victoria felt tears spring to her eyes. That's more than okay, Lily. That's perfect. As they planned their wedding, Mark found himself reflecting on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. If he hadn't missed that meeting, if Victoria hadn't been angry enough to confront him in person, if she hadn't seen the photographs and recognized his struggle, so many small moments that could have gone differently. On their wedding day, Mark added a special tribute to his late wife in his vows, thanking her for teaching him how to love and promising that Lily would always know her. Victoria, in turn, made vows not just to Mark, but to Lily as well, promising to honor the memory of her mother while creating new family traditions together. Life wasn't perfect. They still had disagreements about work-life balance. Lily still had occasional meltdowns about the changes in her life. Victoria still sometimes felt like an outsider when Mark and Lily reminisced about before. But they faced each challenge together, with honesty and compassion. 3 years after Victoria had stormed into their lives with the words, "You're fired," she stood in a hospital room, holding Mark's hand as they welcomed their son into the world. Lily, now 8, peered at her baby brother with a mixture of fascination and uncertainty. "He's so tiny," she whispered. "Was I that small?" "Even smaller," Mark told her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Your mom, your first mom, used to say you were the size of a loaf of bread." Victoria watched them, her heart full. There had been a time when mentions of Mark's late wife had made her feel insecure, but now she understood that keeping those memories alive was an act of love, not a threat to their present happiness. "What do you think, Lily?" Victoria asked, adjusting the baby in her arms. "Does he look like a James to you?" Lily nodded solemnly. "James is good. Can his middle name be after my first mom, so he knows about her too?" Mark and Victoria exchanged glances, both moved by the child's thoughtfulness. "James Catherine Daniels, Chen," Victoria said, testing the name. "I think that's beautiful." As they gathered around the newest member of their family, Mark couldn't help but marvel at how completely his life had transformed. From the depths of grief and failure to this moment of profound joy, all because his boss had knocked on his door one Sunday afternoon to fire him. Sometimes, he realized, what seems like the end is actually just the beginning. And as for Victoria, the woman who had once documented his every professional failure now kept a different kind of record. Photographs of family vacations, Lily's school achievements, their wedding day, and now their newborn son. The marketing executive who had valued perfection above all else had learned to embrace the beautiful mess of family life, finding fulfillment she'd never known existed. That crayon drawing Lily had given her years ago, of the 3 stick figures that had seemed like such an impossible fantasy at the time, now hung framed in their family room, a reminder of how sometimes children can see possibilities that adults miss. Life would continue to bring challenges. There would be teenage years to navigate, career decisions to make, and the ongoing balance of honoring the past while building their future. But they would face it all together. This family forged from loss and second chances, because sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the words, "You're fired." If you've made it to the end of this journey with Mark, Victoria, and Lily, Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us how life's most difficult moments can lead to unexpected blessings. Share in the comments if you've ever had a moment that seemed terrible but led to something wonderful. I'd love to hear your stories too. Until next time, remember that sometimes what looks like an ending is really just the beginning of something beautiful.